This is the Georgia Farm Monitor. Since 1966, your source for state and national agribusiness news, and features for farmers and consumers about Georgia's #1 industry, agriculture. The Georgia Farm Monitor is produced by the state's largest general farm organization, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now, here are your hosts, Ray D'Alessio and Kenny Burgamy.
Yes, the 51-year-old trend continues. Another Georgia Farm Monitor begins, just like it has every week since 1966. Welcome all. So glad you tuned in. I'm Ray D'Alessio.
And I'm Kenny Burgamy. Lots to talk about today. Straight ahead of the program, despite a court ruling in favor of Georgia in the ongoing water wars with Florida, state officials say don't celebrate just yet. Mark Wildman reports on the many issues still facing farmers.
Also on the program, with St. Patty's Day right around the corner, we'll head to the kitchen and whip up some Irish favorites that'll make your taste buds dance like a happy leprechaun. And then later.
Hey everybody, range your neck. The drought has been a topic of conversation for quite a few months, and if it's got you worried and you're worried what you can do about it, I'm going to share with you some facts about how you can look at the forage and the quality of your animals. All that and so much more starts right now on the Georgia Farm Monitor.
Although happy with the decision, state lawmakers say the recent court ruling finding in favor of Georgia in the long legal fight with Florida over water flow into the Apalachicola River is just a small step in the right direction. In his report, Ralph Lancaster, a special master appointed by the U.S. Supreme Court, wrote that Florida had not proven by clear and convincing evidence that imposing a cap on Georgia's water use would provide a material benefit to Florida. Still, Georgia officials say the battle isn't over and that many issues still need to be addressed. Mark Wildman reports.
In Bainbridge, a large crowd of local farmers gathered to hear new information about the future of the state's water policy. Local and state officials, along with other stakeholders, understand the importance of irrigation to the state's ag industry.
We've got to look at the future issues that could impact water use. It's much better to address those now and be prepared. So make sure we're doing everything possible to protect our water interests and the ability to have a reasonable use of the resource.
This meeting is just one example of how farmers are working together to help ensure producers have an adequate supply of water for their crops and to make sure every effort is made to conserve the natural resource.
We are the primary stewards of the land and water resources that the Lord's given us. We live here in Georgia. So it's incumbent upon us to take the leadership role, to be the lead steward. And so I don't think we need to fear quite so much the future as we need to plan for it. And we need to make sure that we can always say that we're doing everything possible to be the best steward of these resources.
This meeting was held just down the road from the president of the Georgia Farm Bureau, Gerald Long's farm, and he understands just how vital it is for farmers to be able to irrigate during the hot, dry Georgia growing season.
It is the lifeblood of agriculture in southwest Georgia. Because most of our land is lighter, sandier loam land, ideal growing conditions for most any crop, but we must have water in a timely manner. And it is the lifeblood of not only agriculture, but the agricultural communities around in it. And that's the economic impact of every county in southwest Georgia.
He was able to talk to producers about current issues and to explain how Georgia Farm Bureau is working hard for farmers in the state.
That's the purpose of our organization, is to represent farmers in the legislative arena. So that's our responsibility.
Along with staying up to date on current issues, it is also very important for all farmers to get connected with Georgia Farm Bureau and strengthen Georgia agriculture's voice.
We just got to stress to them how important it is for them to be members, because we represent all farmers, whether they're members of Georgia Farm Bureau or not. We represent everyone, and we certainly want them to be part of what we're trying to do to protect agriculture and be sure we have a successful agricultural life.
In Decatur County, I'm Mark Wildman for the Georgia Farm Monitor.
To produce a solid crop, you must first have a solid foundation. That's why transplant producers like Mobley Plant Company, which is the largest in the nation, are so essential to growers around the country. Damon Jones takes a closer look at their operation and what it takes to run such a large business.
Walking through your local grocery store, you'll find some of the freshest, safest fruits and vegetables in the world. And most of this produce begins in greenhouses just like this one. That's why the Mobley Plant Company in Moultrie is so important, as it ensures a quality plant for fruit and vegetable growers around the country.
Well, basically we're vegetable transplant producers. We produce transplants for big produce farming operations, whether it be watermelons, pepper, tomatoes, cabbage, broccoli farmers, just all kind of different produce farmers.
Getting a quality plant in a timely manner is essential for the producer, which is why so many of them have plants growing in one of the more than 80 greenhouses Mobley owns around the Southeast.
They contract with us to plant the seed for them and produce the transplants. They give us the varieties they want, the amount of seed they want planted, and how many plants they expect to come off, and they give us a delivery schedule of when they're wanting to transplant their crop into their fields. So it's a year-round business. We're producing transplants 11 out of 12 months, so we're shipping somewhere all the time.
And with that kind of schedule and that number of customers, keeping things running smoothly can be a daily chore.
You really have to be timely when a grower, they're all calling, they need plants, and you're trying to schedule trucks and trailers and labor to get them out of the greenhouses. It's challenging, especially in the spring of the year, so you try to set yourself apart with quality and service.
While it can be stressful at times, Mobley wouldn't have it any other way. In fact, the thing he most enjoys about the job is the relationships it helps build.
They're customers, but they're also friends, all the way from South Florida up into the Midwest. And, you know, it's the interaction with them, and it's really the satisfaction of a job well done. And when the plants are really nice and they plant them and they have a successful crop and they're profitable with their produce crops, you take a big reward out of that.
And for all of his good work in the agricultural industry and around his community, Mobley has been nominated for the Agribusiness Person of the Year. It's an honor he doesn't take lightly.
Well, it's very humbling. When you looked at the last 30 years of all the agribusinessmen in the county that were nominated and received the award, it was kind of a who's who of all the old-time farmers going back to my father and his age group, and it was just made up of a lot of good people, good families, and family people that just have made a career and a living out of being in ag. And so we always are proud whenever the ag community is recognized in our county, and of course it is the largest business in Colquitt County.
Reporting from Moultrie, I'm Damon Jones for the Georgia Farm Monitor.
Damon, thank you so much for that report. Now, after the break, it's time for some Irish cooking. See what Ray and Marcia are cooking up for your St. Patty's Day feast. That's next when the Farm Monitor continues.
Hi, I'm Lauren Griffith, and I'm an Extension Leadership Specialist at the University of Georgia, and I work with all of our leaders in agriculture and forestry and help them to be the best they can be. I have the best job ever in the whole world, and I love it because I can work with amazing people who want to better themselves and they want to grow, and that's part of what I get to do, is to facilitate that growth for them. Today I'm working with a group of program and staff, and we're talking about generational differences in the workplace, and so that's a body of research that I do. And so we're looking at each of the generations, millennials, baby boomers, traditionalists, Gen Xers, and talking about their preference in their work style and how we can learn from that and how we can work better together once we understand each other. I've always just been fascinated by the stories of leaders and how they've become who they are. So that's something that I always wanted to study and learn more about. And I'm also fascinated about adults and how we learn. And so that was part of my inspiration in wanting to study adult education and look at women specifically and how women learn leadership skills in the context of agriculture. As a small child growing up in Cochran, Georgia, I was surrounded by agriculture, and I think it's such a way of life for us. It's just a blessing for me to work with it and to develop leaders in the industry.
yes, top of the morning to you, and a fine day indeed it is. All right, cut with all the Irish accents. Welcome back, everybody, to the Georgia Farm Monitor and to our very first edition of Meals from the Field for 2017.
It's amazing.
Been a while since we've seen our friend Marcia Crowley here, our economist specialist. Good to see you again,
Good to
Marcia.
see you, Ray.
And yes, as you can tell, we are all dressed up in green. We've got our St. Patrick's Day theme going on. Marcia was saying how she was trying to come up with something creative this month, and we've never done a St. Patrick's Day.
We never have.
So this is the first, so tell us what we have. From the looks of it, it looks like we have our normal St. Patrick's Day recipes.
We do, but
Okay.
you know, it's amazing we've never done St. Patrick's Day.
No.
There's 2 cities in the United States where St. Patrick's Day is a legal holiday.
Let me guess, one is Savannah?
Savannah, the other one is Boston. That's interesting.
Okay, that is interesting. I've never been down to Savannah for,
Oh my
for the
goodness.
celebration down
You
there.
need
so,
to.
yes.
All right, so we're doing traditional corned beef and cabbage,
Okay.
and I personally think people are a little intimidated to cook a corned beef, but nothing could be easier.
Mm-hmm.
You buy the corned beef, obviously, and it's prepackaged, and you basically empty the corned beef. There are different ways to cook it, but I cook mine in a crock pot. In a crock pot, along with the juice,
Mm-hmm.
which is the brine, and usually it's a tough cut of meat, so you've got to cook it for a while.
Do you cook it over a Blarney stone?
Yes. You empty in the seasoning pack that comes with it,
Nice, okay.
and then I'm adding water here, but if I were at home, I would add beer.
Okay. Is it Irish spring water?
Yes, it's Irish spring water. But USDA has just come out with a study that alcohol never completely cooks out of food. So if you are opposed to that or have a problem or whatever,
Use water.
use water,
Okay.
yeah, or apple juice. So that's all there is to that. Put it on the lid on it, and you're going to simmer it for 8 to 10 hours until it's tender.
No, I do have to say, of course, even though the last name D'Alessio, I do come from a family of Irishmen, and they would rather prefer their beer, with yes.
Hey, everybody's Irish on St. Patrick's Day, right? When this is almost done, or when it is done, you would lift the lid and add cabbage wedges.
Cabbage wedges,
Yes,
okay.
but I cook the potatoes separately in the oven myself. Okay, then we've got here another traditional St. Patrick's Day dish, which is corned beef hash, and it's a great use for leftover corned beef. You could also make a Reuben sandwich with it.
Nice, which I like.
All right, we're going to pretend that that is hot, but this is a cup of onion. You can also use your leftover potatoes. You're going to add that to this frying pan. And like I said, that should be hotter if you were doing this at home. Cup of onion, 2 cups of diced potatoes, and 2 to 3 cups of cubed corned beef that's already cooked that you have left over from St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
If you get up the next morning and need a hearty breakfast, this is your
Something
man
to
right
soak
here.
up the adult beverages from the night before,
Yeah,
possibly?
Possibly. So you're just going to saute this probably for 2 to 3 minutes,
Okay.
and then you're going to turn it to medium, but we're going to leave it on high, so it's and you are going to pat it down in the frying pan, and you're just going to let the bottom kind of become crusty.
Okay.
And you would serve this traditionally with poached eggs,
All right.
which a lot of people love, but this is a really good way to use leftovers. And like I said, the corned beef is a really tough cut of meat, so you need to cook it for a while, whether it's in a crock pot or you simmer it in a Dutch oven for several hours until it's tender.
Right, and here we have the breakfast. This is the corned beef hash, as you were mentioning, with the little nice poached egg on top. And what kind of rolls are those that have
Those are some Chef Holly made for us.
Very nice.
Yeah,
Very nice. They
especially
look
for
scrumptious.
the show.
So there is your corned beef hash with the, that would be a poached egg.
That's a poached egg.
Poached egg on top. See, I'm learning.
You're learning.
I'm learning. And then over here we have
The corned beef also, I forgot to mention, what I do is I make a glaze once it's done.
Okay.
Equal parts of brown sugar and spicy brown mustard, and you just glaze the top of that corned beef when it's done, put it in the oven and let it bake for a few more minutes. Whoops.
And you just put any particular type of mustard, or
Spicy brown.
spicy brown mustard. Okay.
And so that's what the glaze is on there, and you
Okay.
serve it with carrots, cabbage, and the new potatoes. And there you have it.
And you may have said this, but I got so excited. How long do you put the, that's actually in your crock pot.
Yep.
And then the potatoes, I mean, do you cook all those separately? Or?
You would cook it all separately, yes.
Okay.
Yes, but you would put the corned beef back in the oven for maybe 5-10 minutes with the glaze over it, just to.
But what do I know? That's why every month I go online to gfb.org/recipes. How about that for a transition?
Very good.
Yeah, folks, again, you can go online, find all these recipes on gfb.org/recipes. Like I said, everything is there for you in detail. If I can do it, you could easily do it. Marcia?
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Good to see you again.
Good to
Thanks
see
for
you.
playing along. Great spread here. And folks, we will see you again next month.
Hey everybody, coming up to answer the all-important question, to feed or to fuel? I'll have that answer on the other side of this.
Tennessee agriculture includes row crop farming, livestock production, and on-farm business ventures like agritourism and direct sales to customers. Agriculture provides our food supply, so we always need people to choose farming as their profession. So consider this agricultural recruiting. UT Extension, along with several partners, is holding a series of workshops around Tennessee called Considerations for Beginning Farmers.
And a lot of these folks are not coming from any sort of background, any sort of history with farming. They didn't grow up that way. They don't have any prior knowledge. They don't have any experience. But it's just some do, but a lot of them, they just think, I want that lifestyle. I want to raise a family like that. I want to do something else.
Topics covered at this meeting in Bradley County included financial management, land purchase options, veterinary and safe food practices, and equipment needs. It's a lot to take in, but valuable information for Michael Hampton and his wife from Lincoln County. They have a meat goat operation they'd like to expand.
We're going to bring it up. We're going to roughly get up to around 50 to 100 in the long run, but we're going to start small and make sure that we understand how to produce and how to market our product to get it out to the consumer.
There are opportunities in agriculture, but also things to consider. UTIA ag economists say people should know there are financial risks involved. Think about off-farm employment for either you or your spouse. Be flexible, and above all else, have a business plan.
It doesn't have to be an extensive business plan, but getting kind of the basics of the business down, what you're hoping to accomplish from it, and then also identifying the resources that you have available to your disposal.
Dr. Aaron Smith recommends beginning farmers diversify. Not just produce one thing, but have several options in case part of your operation has a bad year.
For example, you don't want to end up having maybe cotton and tomatoes because those two don't really complement each other from an equipment standpoint. Whereas maybe beef and tomatoes might make sense, or tobacco and beef is obviously an historic one in East Tennessee.
Several more of these workshops are planned around the state in 2017. Agriculture is vital to our society, and for it to have a solid future, it takes land, resources, and people. This is Charles Denny reporting.
Finally today, it's no secret that a fat cow is usually a happy cow. It means they're eating good, and that makes for better profits.
Yeah, but as Ranger Nick tells us, cattle nutrition can sometimes be an issue, especially if Mother Nature is in the mix. Fortunately, there is the wonderful service called UGA Extension.
Hey everybody, well if you watch the Georgia Farm Monitor like I do at home, there's one thing for sure. We've had a lot of stories related to drought, and it certainly has affected a lot of people both in Georgia and around the country. There's few things that we can do about a drought with regards to rain, but we can do some things with regards to our animals and the things that they eat. I've got a gentleman hanging out with me today that knows a thing or two about what to do with those animals and the things they eat. Dr. Lawton Stewart's with us, Extension Beef Cattle Specialist at UGA. This guy knows a thing or two about not only beef cattle, but what we can do to help them in terms of what they're eating. Dr. Stewart, I'm looking at some of these wonderful faces out here behind me. They are so cute to look at. If I was to go out and look at a piece of property and determine if these cows are healthy and how the drought is potentially impacted them, what kind of things would I be looking for in them?
Sure, Nick. Well, first of all, I appreciate you letting me be here.
Yeah.
And droughts affect us, a lot of our cattle producers this year with the ability to produce cattle and calves. And really, the first thing we would do is come out here and look at cows, because the cows will tell you a lot what's going on with them.
Yeah.
And so what we do is what we call looking at body condition, and basically how fat are those cows, because that condition affects their ability to reproduce, to lactate. So what we would do is look at a group of cows and try to say, well, how fat are those cows, for a simple explanation. So we start looking at their ribs, looking at their tail, to see if we can see where that fat's being deposited or where there's no fat there.
Okay. Now, in terms of body condition score, what is that range? 0 to 100? What are we looking at?
Sure. So when we talk about body condition score, we're talking about a range that's from 1 to 9, where 1 is emaciated and 9 is obese. And so most of our cattle are going to be somewhere in the middle. What we typically say is we want something that's a 5 or 6. So right there in the middle, drops below a 5, we start affecting their ability to do their job in our cow herd.
Interesting. Now, body condition score, I'm thinking my body condition's probably a 5 or 6, at least, something like that. But in terms of looking at these cows, I want to talk next about the stuff that they eat and what we can do in terms of analyzing some of that. So let's check that out next. All right, so I took Dr. Stewart's advice. I looked at the cows. I got a body condition score. But we were talking earlier about the importance of feeding versus fueling your cows. We can give them something to eat, but when we're in drought conditions, the quality of that forage, that grass, probably isn't so great. So I got to get into stuff like we're kneeling in today, supplementing that forage. Dr. Stewart, what kinds of things am I going to be looking for in my forage to determine if it's good quality?
Sure. So, Nick, if we're going to start looking at the forage and if it's going to meet the nutrient requirements of those animals, and something we really think about is how those nutrient requirements change depending on where that cow is in production. So if we look at our cows now, they're lactating, they're supporting that little animal. So what we're going to do is look at this forage and see if it has the energy and the protein needed for those cows. So we're going to do that through taking a forage sample.
Okay. And we're going to rely on our buddies with the Cooperative Extension Service to do that. And let's talk about how we take that sample next. So the value in cooperative extension, here it comes again. I talk about this a lot. Dr. Stewart mentioned going out and getting a sample of that forage that you got. Dr. Stewart, walk us through. We're standing along a bunch of bales of forage right now. What do I do to get that sample so I can get that report to know how good it is?
Sure, Nick. Well, the idea is you want to represent as much of that cutting hay as possible. So what we're going to do is go sample every other bale or every few bales. And it's a simple process, but it's not just as simple as going and grabbing a handful of that hay. Okay. What we'll do is get our county agent out there, because there's a special instrument, a hay probe, that we're going to use to go into this bale to represent as much of that bale as possible.
And then I take that agent takes it away, and I'm going to get some kind of a forage report back from that? Is that right? It's kind of what I've got in my hands here that we're seeing on the screen?
That's right, Nick. So you'll get this report back, and there's a lot of numbers here, but especially for our people that are new to the process, there's a few numbers that I want to focus on. Okay. First of all, our relative forage quality is simply an index. Anything above 100 is getting better, below 100 is not getting as well. Okay. And then we want to look at energy value, which is our total digestible nutrients, and looking at it on a dry matter basis, and our crude protein. Those are the nutrients we're looking for. And then finally, especially in the drought, we have a tendency to accumulate a compound called nitrates, and as this gets higher, there's the potential to hurt cows or even kill cows. Okay. So the idea is what we want to do is keep it below 4,000 parts per million, but ultimately what we want to do is get with our county agents to understand those numbers, because that's what they're there for.
That's for sure, because I'm looking at this, and not that I'm an expert scientist or anything, but I just don't know too much about this, but the agent can help me with that. And absolutely. What a wonderful thing. Dr. Stewart, thank you for hanging out with me today. We appreciate it. The value in extension. I always wear the shirt, but look at what you can do with this. Y'all, go online. Check out the Georgia Farm Monitor Facebook page. Check out the Ranger Nick Facebook page, and learn more about what you can do with forage. And until next time, holy cow, we've learned a lot. Ranger Nick reminding you that enthusiasm is contagious. Y'all, pass it on. Have a great rest of the month. We'll see you right back here again next time. See ya.
All right, Nick, thank you so much. That is going to do it for this week's edition of the Georgia Farm Monitor.
Here's a reminder for all the latest ag info regarding food, great recipes, what's happening down on the farm. Be sure and check out our Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest pages. You'll stay informed and see what's up in the world of farming and the Farm Monitor Show.
Take care, everybody. We will see you next week right here on the Georgia Farm Monitor.
Have a great week.